I'm your host, and Dennis. Joining me today are the panellists Josh McLean, Freya Price, Gareth Owen, Charlie Kingsbury and Flynn Burgess. We will be discussing the question, will the rise in tuition fees inevitably result in the exclusion of lower income families from higher education? We will begin with Josh McLean.
In my opinion, definitely not. The main reason is because it's just a loan. It's not means tested, so it means anyone can get it and can pay it back after £21,000, which I think is a reasonable salary to start paying back, that kind of size of loan. There are lots of grants available, especially in this country, Wales, from the Welsh Government. They're subsidising, if we go to English universities, they're subsidising the raising fees, and you can get grants for if you're a very low income family. And I think it had to be done in the current economic climate, personally. It's in my opinion. Yeah.
Freya Price?
Although much of what you say might be true about the format that people will pay it back, most people don't know about this, and I think it's the perception of fees is really putting people off, especially from lower income families, and that will result in less social mobility.
Gareth Owen?
Yeah, I agree with Freya. I don't think the government has done enough to explain how these changes have affected, how they will affect our applications for ARIA to go to further education. Applications are down this year at this stage for universities at 12.9%, and I think that shows that the government has not yet done enough to get the message out on how things have changed and how maybe things have changed for the better.
Charlie Kingsbury?
Well, personally, I don't agree with tuition fees. I think that people should go to university based on their skill, not on how much they can pay. However, I do see a need to raise tuition fees to £9,000 a year maximum because of, like Josh said, the economic situation that our country is in.
Flynn Burgess?
Well, I come from a lower income background, and when I was looking at universities, I had serious doubts whether I'd be able to go because of these rises in tuition fees, because obviously I don't feel that I can afford it, even though I get this loan which I only have to pay back bit by bit, and that's still only if I earn over 21,000, but that is still money being spent, and that really does have an influence on top of all the other bills you'd have to pay after leaving university. And another thing to take into consideration, which I don't think lots of people do, is the cost of living while in university, because you have these £9,000 a year fees, and on top of this, you're probably paying at least £7,000 to £8,000 per year just for living, and people really don't consider this, and it does influence it, and I definitely think that this creates a divide, and I think that's why.
Charlie Kingsbury?
Well, to be honest, I don't see what alternative we have at the moment because of the economic situation. We can't exactly justify the government spending millions on free education, free higher education for everyone. So I don't see what else we can do.
Gareth Owen?
So what you are advocating is that once we're out of this economic difficulty, that we make higher education free.
Yes, I suggest
and
that we take steps towards that. What
happens if we get into another economic mess and we find ourselves having to cut back? Because then they won't see this free education. They won't see it as a privilege that the state has bestowed upon them, but more of a right, and it'll become as big a problem as the public sector pensions has become now.
I'd like to dispute your point that the cuts and the rise in fees are necessary. I would say that the privatisation of our public services and the cuts to them are ideological rather than necessary, and that the rise in fees isn't even really helping with the deficit, so it's not necessary.
Although that was an interesting point, we must draw it to a close. Thank you to the panellists, and thank you for watching.